Good morning and welcome to the fourth Wellness Summit session. It Gets Better, a story of resilience. My name is Becky Stahl and I'm your moderator for this session. It's important for me to be here today because in 2018, the Siegel JCC, together with Jewish Family Services and Federation, came together to help our community heal from the loss of one of our own. 16-year-old Sarah Segerstrom lost her life to suicide. We created a forum, the Wellness Summit, to share grief, learn about the impact of mental health, and find ways to cope as a community. I'm excited to be with you today. Today we're joined by Andrew Onimus. Andrew comes to us from Minding Your Mind, an organization that dedicates itself to providing mental health education to adolescents, teenagers, young adults, and their parents, teachers, and school administrators with the goal of ending the stigma of mental health issues. Andrew will share his story of struggle and hope through the grips of depression and anxiety. Please feel free to ask questions during the session by using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You will not be able to unmute yourself. After Andrew gets through his presentation, I will be able to ask those questions. And if we can't get to all the questions, we will be posting the answers after the session on the website that has been dropped in the chat box. Now, please help me welcome Andrew.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Becky. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and I hope you're having a decent morning so far. I'm going to share my screen right now. I just have a slide deck to go with my presentation. So my name is Andrew Onimus, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about my own story with going through some depression, anxiety. And I really appreciate the Jay and you all for putting this on because it's an important conversation of hope and kind of how I managed to go through what my battles were, but more importantly, how I got to a place of peace and happiness again in my life. So some of the things that I share today obviously might hit home. Maybe it's yourself, a family member, a friend. And we want you to know as a group that you're not alone, that there are resources here for help, and that we're here to listen. Before I begin, I always start with kind of doing something a little bit goofy to warm up. I get nervous. I still have anxiety. I'm treated now. I have medication and I go to counseling, but I still get nervous before events, especially speaking to a group in person or on Zoom. So I usually get up and I do some frog jumps. I kind of how I used to warm up for a track meet or a football game when I was in high school or college. But now I'm just going to kind of shake out my arms a little bit. I'm going to take a deep breath. And then I usually kind of just smack my face slightly a few times. And I feel like I'm grounded and ready for a 400-meter race or and a big exam or something. So my name is Andrew. I grew up in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania in Delaware County, not too far away. And I always say that if you were to tell me when I was in the seats of many of the students we speak to, whether that was middle school, high school, college, or even adulthood, that I would be here speaking about mental health and sharing my own story of depression and anxiety, I probably wouldn't believe you because I had a really good life and I was always a really happy and go lucky kid and, man growing up. But I'm here for a reason. When I entered my senior year in college in 2013, about 7 years ago, I started to struggle. And I don't really know why I struggled. I didn't necessarily have big triggers or events in my life that maybe I thought would bring about a bout of sadness or depression, but I got into this funk. It started with sleep issues, then my concentration in class slowly went away. I fell behind in a lot of my schoolwork. On the football field, I was making mistakes and I didn't feel like I was enjoying it as much as I normally did. I lost a lot of my appetite. I lost weight and I had no idea what was going on. It continued to get worse. I completely isolated from friends and family. I started self-harming and using negative coping skills. And then I hit rock bottom about 3 months in, right before Thanksgiving. about a week before Thanksgiving, I was in my basement at my college house. And instead of being upstairs watching Family Feud with my roommates, which is one of my favorite shows, Steve Harvey is my boy, I was downstairs in the basement experiencing suicidal thoughts. I was terrified. I did not want to die. I didn't want to hurt myself. I just didn't know what was going on. And I didn't understand that there was recovery for this and that I would get better. I'm really thankful that after talking to a coach and a professor that day, I called my mom. And as there might be some mothers in here or parents, sometimes you know when your kid, your child, the people you love, something's wrong. And that's exactly what my mom could hear in my voice. I said, Mom, I'm not okay. I know I haven't told you anything, but I need help. There's something really wrong. My mom came up to school. We went to a Wendy's nearby campus. I love their chicken nuggets. So we sat down for a little bit, and then it got a little bit worse. I started to have really high panic, anxiety, a panic attack. I went home, back to Drexel Hill, where I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't understand what this was. Thankfully, my mom drove me to the hospital nearby at Bryn Mawr Hospital right in Haverford. And the doctor rolled me in and went through all these signs and symptoms, tested my blood, and then asked me the three crisis questions, which I'll share later. And I got diagnosed with what I had. It was major depression, severe anxiety, and severe insomnia. 3 illnesses that are very treatable. And that is the first step I took. The first conversation I had was that night about what I was going through. 7 years later, I'm here. I'm probably the happiest I've ever been in my life. And I absolutely love life again. And the reason that I love life is because I got the help that I needed and deserved, just like we all deserve, everyone in this room, every human. And sometimes we might need. I still take medication every single day for my depression. I'm on an antidepressant. I've been on the same one for 6 years. Definitely a lower dose than when I started, but I may be on it my whole life. I'm not really sure. And to be honest, I'm not much of a science person or biology guy. I don't know much about the brain or the chemistry or what kind of these medicines do, but I do think, and I know from my psychiatrist and therapist, that it gets me to a baseline so that I can fight my issues in other ways through positive coping, through positive people, and through talking, which is something that I still do a lot. Number 2, I still go to therapy. I don't go as frequently as I did when I started recovery 6.5 years ago, but or around 7 years ago. But I go maybe once or twice a year, or whenever I need to. I try to be honest with myself, and if things are going on or I don't feel 100% like me, I might schedule another appointment. And I think therapy is something that took me a little bit of a while to figure out and accept that I needed it, but it's been a godsend. It's been so helpful for me, and I know a lot of people in their own battles, their own struggles. But I think the number one thing that I learned in my recovery, and something I'm going to ask you all here today, is that there are positive ways that we can cope with what we're going through. They may not always fix things, they may not always solve our problems, but they might be temporary positive distractions or reliefs that can really, really help on your bad nights. So as I share 3 or 4 of my favorite coping skills, some you might relate to, some you might not. I ask you all, as you're sitting wherever you are, a cup of coffee, to think about yours. What are some outlets? What are the things that you turn to on your tough days that help? Because I know we all have them. I call it my toolbox. You can't see it, but it's there. It's all these outlets that I turn to. So I'm going to share 3 or 4 of mine, and then maybe we can talk if anyone else wants to share via the chat, the Q&A. Number 1 for me is the gym. Exercise has always been a big outlet for me because I was an athlete. I'm really competitive. Sports are my passion. So I still go to the YMCA in my town now, in Havertown, and I go there to be on a bike. I might run on a treadmill. I might lift weights. Sometimes I play basketball. Sometimes I just kind of hang out and watch basketball. I may not even be doing anything. And I love it. It's where I go to have peace. I'm around people. I'm a pretty social person. So I'll talk about this a little bit. The whole pandemic has been a whole kind of another added level of stress. because it's been hard. A lot of our normal coping skills aren't maybe available or there as much right now. Hopefully we'll be back soon. But the gym is definitely a huge outlet for me. Number two is my dog. I know pets can be really big, calming things and awesome friends too. I have a little Yorkie poo named Abby. She's like 7 pounds. She lives at my parents' house now, but that dog was one of my best friends and kind of still is. When I was going through that really hard year, she would just follow me around the house. She would lay on my stomach on the couch. It was almost like she knew something was wrong. She would just kind of listen to me, and her head would go back and forth, and we would go for walks and go to the park. Um, and that was a safe thing, as small as it is, to have a dog around. And it was peaceful to me, and I liked hanging with her. So pets can definitely be a big outlet for people. Number three is what I call like kind of a funny one. Some of you may remember that app called Vine. They were 6-second videos that were really funny. A lot of comedians had accounts and they would post small videos, and I would follow them all on the app, and it would make me laugh a lot. Now Vine's not around. It's like TikTok and all these new ones that kids are tuned into more than maybe like adults. But when I still struggle now, I go into YouTube and I search Vine videos, and you can find all the old ones, the funny comedians, all these like back-to-back videos, 20 half hour long, and it makes me laugh. And for those 20 minutes, or if I'm watching an Office of the Episode or Seinfeld, a favorite TV show, I'm not thinking about anything else really. I'm not thinking about my stress or my relationships, my work, my family. I'm kind of just laughing. And those 15, 20 minutes are a relief for me. And I look forward to that at the end of a rough day or a busy day or a tough week. Um, and then my last one uh, is something that I always share in my talks. When I was at my worst, I know it might sound a little bit weird, but frosted mini wheats saved my life. When I was eating that bowl and I poured those biscuits in there, I poured some milk in and let them get a little bit soggy, I was like, these things are so good. I am okay right now. And in those 5-10 minutes of me eating that cereal, those mini wheats, I was okay. I at least could get through those 5-10 minutes. And that was a really positive relief for me. I may have eaten way more than maybe someone should, a lot of sugar and a lot of carbs, but if it gave me that 5-10 minute of mental relief where I was okay, then that was more than enough. And those are things that I still turn to now. Those are kind of my 4 core ones outside of connecting with friends and family. So does anyone have any coping skills you want to share that has been helping out in the last maybe few months, because it's been hard for a lot of people, or even before, on good days even? What are some things that are your outlets or give you peace or you look forward to? Anybody want to share?
Andrew, we have a couple coming in.
Hmm.
Yoga and reading, music, walking in nature, journal gratitude, meeting friends and family, walking outside, exercise, looking at photos. That's a great one.
Yeah, memories. Yep. I love a lot of good ones there.
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone sharing. And as I kind of talk through these, and as we kind of think about this, build up your toolbox, because these things are so important. I think a lot of people have been really leaning on them more since the pandemic started, or maybe you're a parent and you're wearing 15 different hats, and you're like, oh man, I need like hot cocoa at night, or I need a bath, or I need to go out for a drive. I think whatever those outlets are for you, continue to use them, because it's so important. And that's a self-care thing. That's not selfish at all. Self-care is so important. In order for us to be our best and to help other people, we need to be healthy too. Um, the reason I talk about these things so much is, I think especially with kids, when we speak in school, it's usually really funny. They share a video game, or they like putting fake tattoos on their arms, whatever it is. Um, is because when people are struggling, negative outlets tend to come up sometimes sooner or more frequently than positive ones. And I share this from experience. When I was struggling with depression, I found myself isolating much more than I ever had in my life. And I mentioned it a little bit, and you'll hear it in my story. I don't like being by myself. I like being around friends, family. I like laughing. I like games, socializing, just anywhere. And I, in a weird way, it kind of fed to my depression, my isolation. It was like, this is what you're supposed to do. You feel more comfortable like this. I don't want to be a burden on anyone. And that was a clear negative outlet for me is isolation. Um, I also drank more beer and alcohol than I probably ever had in my life. And I don't even really like beer or alcohol, to be honest. I only go and might have a beer or two at a bar with friends watching football now. But when I was struggling, I would go and get a 6-pack, a 12-pack, and go up into my college house and drink by myself. And it was just like a numbing thing for me. And it was really scary. I wasn't fixing anything I was going through. It wasn't helping the problems. It was just like a 15-minute relief or distraction. And that led me to negative outlets. That led me to anger. I got in fights with my friends. It pushed me even further behind when I should have been getting some like real help. And it was scary. I could definitely see how people might become almost dependent on negative outlets for their relief. And as many of us know, that can clearly lead to addiction or dependencies, which is a whole different problem on top of other ones. And then self-harm. Self-harm's a really confusing thing. For anyone who's healthy, I've said this myself plenty of times. Why would anyone want to hurt themselves? This is how I explain it. I would get so angry and frustrated with myself. I blamed myself for pretty much everything, even though it was an illness. I should have just gotten help sooner. I would go down in my basement, my college house, or even my parents' house when I was recovering and take it out on walls. I would punch a hole in the wall through the drywall, and I would hit like maybe a stud or the foundation with my fist. And I am not the Hulk. I'm not going to break a wall or punch through a house. What that did clearly is it gave me a cut on my fist, or I had a bruised knuckle or a swollen knuckle. And when I saw that, in a weird way, I was like, that's supposed to hurt. That makes sense. Like, ouch, like I have a bruised knuckle. What was going on in my head and with my pain, my depression, I didn't understand. I didn't make sense to me. It was like, why am I like this? Nothing clicked. And in a weird way, that was like a relief. It gave me a 15-second, like, that's supposed to hurt. That makes sense. And when I was self-harming and when I was experiencing suicidal thoughts is when I knew something was really wrong. This isn't normal, and I needed help. And I'm really fortunate that I took that step and I said, I'm not okay. Something's wrong. I need help. Which was probably the hardest part of it all, is that first step. Now I'm here. I speak for Minding Your Mind. I'm going to share some of my story, and then we'll wrap it up and maybe have some questions and thoughts. You'll actually hear a really hopeful story of my friend possibly saving a little girl's life back in 2014. So I'll share that in a little bit too. But if you take nothing else from this story, I've been speaking out Mind Your Mind for 4 years. I think the reason that we exist, the reason that we're here, is because we're trying to reduce stigma around these things so people can talk about them more. I think talking about mental health in the last 5-10 years has been increasing, but there's still work to be done. And the reason is that 1 in 4 teens and adolescents will struggle with a mental health issue, many that are diagnosable, that are treatable. But the problem is less than half of those who struggle seek help. So we need to change that. If I have a broken leg, if I have diabetes, if I have heart disease or skin cancer, I'm going to go and get medical treatment. I'm going to see a professional, talk to my primary care, maybe go to a doctor, therapy. Just the same with mental health. We need to talk about that because then it'll become more normal and people will go see a therapist and that'll be okay. There won't be any judgment. 3 things. Number 1, you are not alone. Please know that. If you struggle with this as a family, as a kid, an adult, you're not alone. Number 2, it is not a weakness to need help. It is a sign of strength. Please know that. And then number 3, it gets better. This is about hope, this conversation. I never would have believed that. So please know that one step at a time, one day at a time. Sometimes we need to take a step back. that's okay. So please keep going. Don't give up. It gets better. I always start my story with this picture. Paints a pretty good sketch of what my life looked like on top and kind of what it's been on bottom. I'm sure a lot of people might look at this and laugh because it relates to you. Reality of life is a roller coaster, right? It's ups and downs. It's very hard days. It's battles. There's good days, of course, and we need to enjoy them when we have them. I love this picture for one, it's relatable to anything in life, any battle, any struggle, but also you can't really see it, but there's sun rays on the top right of that bottom picture. And I think that's that light at the end of the tunnel, that hope that we try our best to hold on to on our bad days, our bad weeks, our bad years. Please hold on to that because I truly believe that exists for everyone. I think there's peace and happiness on the other side of pain. Um, it's all different paths to get there, but I truly believe that there is that side. So if you need support, if you need help, reach out for it because there are people that care about you and will listen and support in any way they can. I know sometimes it might take a little bit to find them, but they are out there. Here I was growing up, a pretty happy kid. There's my brother and I at Christmas. There's me in 8th grade playing football. I thought I was a beast. Clearly I was not. I was maybe 60, 70 pounds then, soaking wet, but football was my outlet. Again, sports were a big passion of mine. I was lucky to play in high school and in college. There's some of my best friends at junior prom when I was in high school. I'm not going to touch on my background too much because I was really fortunate. I was a happy kid. I went to good schools. I think I always had a little bit of anxiety. I was kind of type A. I was a little bit hard on myself, even though I didn't really always have the grades to go with that type A. I got mostly B's and C's in school. I had some friends. I wasn't the most popular kid, and athletic ability, I was a decent athlete. I was lucky to play Division III football and run track in college, but I wasn't going to get a full scholarship to Penn State or Temple or Delaware or anything like that. But I think comparison is something that came out, and I always like mentioning this because comparison is such a big thing, even if we don't like admit it or like know it, because a lot of people are clearly on their phones a lot, right, on social media. And I think a lot of people post highlights on Instagram, on Facebook, good days, of course, which is great. We're sharing what's good in our lives. But when we're having a bad day or we're struggling or we didn't get in here or we have family things going on and we see all those posts, it's like, am I the only one that's not having a good day? Am I the only one that doesn't have good things going on? And like I said, comparison can be the thief of joy. If we're always kind of thinking of other people and what they're doing, we can't enjoy what we have and be the best we have, be the best we can be. So I think that's something that impacts everyone. May have impacted me a little bit in high school, but I was fortunate. I was pretty happy overall. I picked this small school called Muhlenberg College when I was done high school because I wanted to play sports. I wanted 4 more years of football and track in my life. I didn't really know career-wise what I wanted to do, and I was lucky to get into a school like that. I really considered maybe a trade school or community college. I didn't have a necessarily passion for a career. I still don't now. I'm 29 and I have really no idea what I'm going to do in my life, but I think I'm more comfortable with that now. I think many people don't really have a long-term plan, which is completely fine. I hit Muhlenberg College in the fall of 2010 now. It would have been 10 years ago. And I struggled in the beginning. I had some academic issues. I needed some tutors. I really needed to learn how my schedule worked, like a lot of kids and adults struggle with transition sometimes and change. I met some friends though in my sports team. I got some tutors and I got back on my feet after a rough semester or two. And then things really took off for me. My sophomore and junior year went really well. I declared my major in accounting. I just wanted a job, so I picked something in business. I was a cornerback on the football team. I was a sprinter on the track team, and things were really looking up. My grades came up. I met people in theater class, in science club. I was involved a lot on campus. I had a couple jobs during my time there. And almost everyone I met at Muhlenberg was a really, really good person. I felt like it was a really good school for me. I got along with a lot of people, and I was happy, which I think was the number one thing. It wasn't a perfect school by any means. There is no such thing as perfect, but I was happy, and I was pumped, and I was looking forward to, the last couple of years. It all led me to being what I say now at 1,000 feet. In August of 2013, I entered my senior year at a really good spot. I got an internship that summer going into senior year with a big accounting firm in Philadelphia. That internship went really well, and they offered me, and I accepted a full-time job before senior year. So all the stress and pressure that exists of what's next, interviews, resumes, applications, how am I going to pay off these loans, was at least like subsided a little bit. Like I had a job, like I was really pumped about it. I worked hard, but I also had a lot of support and help along the way. I had awesome friends and family. Again, I'm really fortunate to have the support that I had because, as I know, as anyone knows, sometimes home life can be tough. Kids may not have the support that they might need, or they've tried to talk about things and maybe there's a closed door when I had an open door. So please find those open doors because there are adults that care about you. Here was senior year. What could possibly go wrong? Would have never imagined my life to kind of take the turns it did. Before I get into my struggles and my symptoms, I point out this picture on the right, and I put this picture here for a reason. This is my family and I on December 24th, 2013. We just went to church. We were celebrating the holidays. It was 4 months after I entered senior year, really happy. I know we're all smiling in this picture, but I can tell you for a fact that 3 of those smiles, mine on the right, my mom, my dad, are completely fake. We were going through a battle. We were going through a really difficult time. I hadn't slept for about 3 months leading up to this picture, no more than an hour or two every day and night. I know it's kind of hard to believe, but I was a pure insomniac. I had been struggling with depression for about 3.5, 4 months. I was in a bout of major depression in this picture. I had self-harm marks on my arms. I would always wear long sleeves. I pretty much had dropped out of school completely, off the football team, and my life consisted of me going to therapy, medication, hospitals. And at this point in this picture, we hadn't found the right recipe yet. My mom's a first grade teacher. She could barely make it to work because she was scared, and trying her best to keep going and find hope for us. And my dad stayed up for me most nights. He could barely sleep too because he was just constantly worried. And I say this because it was a we thing. It really wasn't a me thing. It was my family and my support. It took a lot for us to continue to go and find the right support and see that hope for some days. But I also point out this picture because things get better. My family and I now are in a way, way better place than there. Please know that. If you ever find yourself in this situation or struggling, keep going. There is light. Even on those days and weeks where you don't believe it, keep going one step at a time. Also, you never know what someone's going through, right? My mom posted this picture on Facebook saying happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And clearly it was not that for us. So a little act of kindness and reaching out to friends and family and checking in can make a big difference because you never know how much someone might need that. So, and for yourself too, reaching out for that help. So what happened to me, I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I do want to point out that I have mental illness in my family. So my mom, my dad, my grandparents, aunts and uncles have struggled with some depression and anxiety in the past. But the first time I heard about that was when I was in the emergency room getting diagnosed with depression because we didn't talk about it. My mom still takes medication for depression. I didn't know this. I thought it was like Advil for headaches. So I really wish that we almost had like a conversation around these things, which I understand families are having way more now, which is great. There was just stigma and people were maybe scared of talking about it because they might think that you push it on someone else. But I think it's always safer to bring it out in the open and say, hey, if you ever anything's going on, I'm here, I'll listen. So I started to change after this minor injury I had. My first practice that summer camp in August, I landed on my back really awkwardly. I had this big hematoma buildup in my lower back. It was a big blood swelling. I didn't know much about what this was. I couldn't see it, thankfully, because it was on like right above my tailbone. But it was like a bubble. It would just swell up like 4 or 5 inches during practice, and I would get PT and take Advil, and I didn't feel like myself. I was really stiff and uncomfortable. Of course, my roommates called it my back boob for a while, because they were a bunch of jokesters, which actually made me laugh and was a little helpful. After a week or two of Advil and kind of doing some physical therapy and stuff, physically I was getting better. But I noticed a big change. And the first big change I noticed was sleep. Instead of getting my normal 7, 8, or 9 hours of sleep, I found myself getting maybe 3 or 4 or 5 in the first couple weeks of September. And I would get up in the middle of the night and go out for a run. I would do push-ups. I would eat something, go out and get melatonin or NyQuil at CVS, take a shower. I love sleeping with a fan at night. I need a sound. So I would go and get a fan, and nothing was working. I was just awake. I was like, what the heck is going on? You're really letting this head injury or I'm sorry, this back injury like affect you this much? Like, why is this happening? A lot of these thoughts just kind of swirled around. I felt like more, way more tired all day, even though I wasn't sleeping. My energy was really down. A few more weeks went by, and I was going through my normal schedule. But clearly things were changed. I had a lot of difficulty in class. I wasn't maybe paying attention to a lecture as much as I normally would, or taking notes or doing homework immediately after. I found myself in this funk phase, and that's what I called it, a funk. I would go online and search all the symptoms I was experiencing, like any college kid, anyone might do on Google or WebMD. And I searched low motivation, lack of like enjoyment in my normal activities. I haven't laughed or smiled in a few weeks, a genuine like laughter. And that was really a big change for me because I'm a happy person. I was like, what the heck? I'm not laughing at Family Feud like Steve Harvey. Like, I might put on a fake smile to pretend. Another big change for me was with friends. Instead of being with my best friends in the cafeteria, which was my favorite place on campus, I love food and I love hanging out. I remember I would get a to-go box. I would often put a sandwich or breakfast in there, grab a drink, and walk right by my teammates, men and women on the track team or football guys, and go back to my house, go up in my room and lock my door. And that was a huge change for me. That wasn't normal at all. And this kind of continued for a few weeks. A few hands opened up, of course. My roommates noticed things and they said, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on? You don't seem like yourself." And me, being me, I was just like, you know me, I'm fine. I'm in this funk. I'll be okay. What I should have done is knock on that counseling center's door. I walked by the counseling center 10 times a day. It was right next to the football locker room. I would go to practice, work out, meetings, and not once did I knock on the door and say, I haven't slept in a month and a half, or I've been losing weight, or I haven't experienced laughter or joy in like a month and a half. Like, what is going on? I really look back and I wish I had, but I think it just talks to the stigma. I didn't want to be a burden on anyone. I didn't know what I was going through was treatable, and I blame myself for it. I thought I needed to rub some dirt on it and get over it until things clearly got worse. I completely isolated from everyone. I started self-harm, and I hit rock bottom as those 3 months went by. On that really scary night in November, I called my mom, and I'm really thankful that I did. I said, "Mom, I'm not okay. I need help right now." I got emotional. I started crying. Um, my mom came up to school. We went to that Wendy's. We drove home. It got worse. I had a panic attack. I could barely breathe. I remember feeling like I was crawling out of my skin. I was shaking, sweating. I had trouble even talking, and my heart was just blasting. It was pumping out of my chest. And my mom drove me to Bryn Mawr because it was late at night. We didn't know where to go, and she knew I needed help. So we went to the hospital, and I'm thankful that we did. The doctor rolled me into the emergency room, asked me all these questions, tested my blood. And then I remember he asked me 3 questions that I'll never forget. He said, "Andrew, are you hopeless? Are you suicidal? And do you have a plan or the means to hurt yourself?" When I heard those first 2 questions, "Are you hopeless?" and "Are you suicidal?" in a weird way, I felt a sense of relief. A doctor in the hospital asked me if I'm hopeless and suicidal. If anyone knows how to help me, it might be him. I'm going to be honest. I said out loud, I am hopeless. And today's talk is about hope. I didn't have it then. I didn't know that this would get better. Number two, I said out loud, I am suicidal. That word is scary. We've all been impacted in some way by suicide or people struggling. Um, I had to say that out loud. My mom was sitting next to me, and her oldest son, who she's done everything to give a great life, just said that he was suicidal. It was not fun. I can't imagine being a parent hearing that from a kid, but we need to be honest in order to get help. And then I said, I do not have a plan or the means to hurt myself. I begged for help. I said, something is wrong. Can you please help me? For the first time in this 3-4 month span of really hard days, I had an answer to what was going on, and I had a plan for recovery. This doctor diagnosed me with major depression, severe anxiety, and insomnia. And I remember him saying that this is not your fault. You will get better. There are a lot of people that come in here every day and with the same symptoms. You're not alone. Here's what's going to happen. Recovery. You're going to start some medicine for your depression. We're going to try to get your sleep back on track because sleep's so important. You're going to start seeing counselors in school, maybe out of school, crisis, maybe some outpatient until you find the right recipe. And as some people might in this room might know, the recipe for recovery was not easy. The reality of recovery was not that first line. It was the second one, a lot of trial and error. The next 6 months from November through about April was really, really hard. I thank God, my family, my friends for being there for me. I tried 6 different medications. About every month or 6 weeks, I changed to another one that was a high dose. They had side effects, really hard. I didn't really believe in them for a while. Therapy, I went to counselors in school and out of school, some that really helped and guided me, others that weren't as helpful as maybe I thought they would be. They would say things like, you should eat salad, you should eat healthier. And I was like, are you serious? Like, you think lettuce is going to help this? I appreciate your thoughts, but I need a little bit more. And then I found the guy that saved my life. The reason that we found my therapist, Austin, is because we didn't give up. We kept trying. If I stopped at my first therapist, I wouldn't have found Austin. If I stopped at my first medication, I wouldn't have found the one that I'm still on now, and clearly helps in some way. Like I'm happy and healthy. So the point of that is don't give up. Keep trying until you find that right recipe. When I first met Austin, I remember thinking that this is not the guy that's going to help me. I did not like him at all. I didn't even like how his name was spelled. It was OSTIN instead of AUSTIN. Don't ask why I didn't like that. I was just so disoriented, depressed, no sleep. I actually like it now, but it just bothered me. He didn't even shake my dad's hand when we met him. He just kind of walked me back in his cocky sense and sat me down on his chair. He asked me one question right away. He said, Andrew, is there anything in your life right now that is okay? You're not thinking about being depressed or suicidal. You're just okay for 5 or 10 minutes of your day. I remember staring at him. At that point, I didn't really have anything. It was really hard. He said, is there a song? Do you like hanging out with a friend or family member? How about a hobby or a snack? And when Austin said snack, I was like, all right, dude, you're right. There really is only one thing. And as I stated in the beginning, I said, Austin, when I get my cereal bowl and I pour those Frosted Mini Wheats in there, I pour that milk in and I eat my Frosted Mini Wheats, I'm okay. I'm like, these things are really good. When Austin heard me say that, I saw him like crack a smile and he kind of got excited and he almost came up and like grabbed my arm. I remember being like, dude, get away from me. I don't know who you are. He said, Andrew, please do me a favor. Hold on to those mini wheats. I know it might sound weird, but I had something very, very similar when I was struggling with depression too. Austin shared with me that he had been through a significant bout of depression in his early 20s. And for about 3 months, the only thing that really kept him going every day was peanut butter and toast. He said he would go out and buy a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter on a bad day. He would come home and put his favorite chair in the kitchen next to the toaster. He would pop 2 pieces of bread in there. And when he thought about maybe using or drinking or self-harm for those 10 or 15 minutes, he said, nope, I'm just going to eat peanut butter and toast right now. And when he was eating that, he was okay. He was like, this is really good. I like this. When Austin said that, I remember thinking, and I told this to him, I was like, I don't like you, but I think you know what this feels like. You've been here before. More importantly, you're out of it. That spark of hope is kind of what I need at that point, and I kind of connected with him at a level that I hadn't yet with another therapist. Side note with those mini wheats, it wasn't even the Kellogg's brand; it was a ShopRite brand because my dad's cheap. They were like $1.50, and I think that brand's even better. But what Austin did for me in there is he sparked recovery. I listened to him. He was now out of that. He didn't rely on peanut butter and toast. He has a job. He's a counselor helping people. He's at peace and he seems to be like happy. Maybe I can too. Maybe I can get there. What did he do? I'm going to listen to him. I met with Austin 3 or 4 times a week for the next 6 weeks, and slowly we changed things one step at a time. I started to, instead of isolate, be with my mom, kind of watch TV with her and hang out. I would go and walk my dog around the block. I would go out for a walk on my own. When I had really high anxiety, we would do like kind of activities where I would like squeeze ice and go for a walk, which is like a grounding exercise. I would play Guitar Hero. I remember like video games was like a positive outlet for me at that time. And slowly these little things became a little bit easier as a day, a week went by. I started taking my medicine more consistently, and I think I found the right one. I started to feel tired again at night, a little bit of sleep, which was amazing. I remember the first time I got like 3 hours of sleep, it was like the best day ever. I felt like I slept for a year, and things were improving. I felt like I needed to share this with someone at that time, and I don't know what made me do this, but I went up to school and I shared what I was going through with my team. And this is a story about my teammate who may have saved a girl's life. So I'll share this really quick and then we'll wrap it up. Um, I went up to school before practice in early March. I had them at the gym at Muhlenberg College, and um, men and women on the track team in the bleachers. And I was standing on the floor, the basketball floor. And I just said, hey guys, I'm Andrew. I'm supposed to be here, but I'm not. And here's why. I'm going through a lot of stuff. I've been depressed. I've been really hopeless. I've experienced suicidal thoughts in the last 6, 7 months, but I'm here. I have a new therapist. I'm taking my medicine and I see light at the end of the tunnel. I also said, if you're going through something like this, or you know someone who is, you're not alone. Put out a hand. Try your best to find help. Try your best to be that support, be an ear, say, I care about you, ask how people's day are going, because it can mean a lot. A little act of kindness can make a big, big difference, because it had for me many times. Right after I spoke, I remember I got all emotional. I started crying, crying's a therapeutic thing. It is not a weakness at all. We all cry. We're all human. Right after I sat down, I noticed something, that about half of my teammates came up and gave me a hug or a handshake, not only in support, but a lot of them said thank you. They said thank you for a reason. They had struggled, or they had a brother or sister who was in it, or maybe an eating disorder or trauma or loss, aunts and uncles who had survived suicide attempts or were in recovery for addiction. They shared what they were going through or what happened in their lives. And it literally right away made me feel like I wasn't alone. I didn't know one of these stories before. Half of my teammates had something that could help people, or they were in it and plugging along and coping and trying their best. It really made me feel like I wasn't alone. And people were texting me, giving me advice, sharing what medication they were on, which was probably a little bit too much information, but at least I felt a little bit better. I went home and Jason went out for a run. Jason was on the cross country team at this time. And what makes this story even cooler is I've heard him say maybe 5 words his whole life before this. Jason was a junior, pretty shy kid, but a really nice kid. During his pre-practice run, he does a 2-mile loop. As he was running that day, he had some things on his mind. He was running over a bypass bridge over Route 22 in the Lehigh Valley, and he just so happened to run into a scary situation. He heard a girl crying. He could kind of vocally hear her, and he looked across the street and he saw this girl sitting by herself, 10 or 11 years old. completely alone. It was pretty cold that day. And instead of running by this girl, he had the courage and the kindness to cross the street. He slowly went up to her. She was sitting really awkwardly on the ledge of the bridge, kind of a little bit towards the highway below, a little bit on the sidewalk. And he said, "Are you okay?" That girl turned around and said, "No, I'm not. Go away. No one wants to listen to me." Jason is a college kid at this time. He is not a therapist. He's not a counselor. He doesn't know how to necessarily fix this girl or help her, but he said something that worked. He said, "My name's Jason, and I will listen to you all day long." That's all he needed to say. That girl turned around and realized that he meant it. She got off that ledge and sat next to him, and they talked. Jason realized immediately that this girl needed help. He called some women over who were walking by. Those women had a cell phone. They called 911. Two police officers came and slowly approached the girl as she got scared, made sure that she was okay, got her safely, drove her to the Lehigh Valley Hospital Network, where she was seen by doctors and counselors who could help. Her parents and guardians were contacted. I don't really know what happened after that, but I do know that one of the officers came back and told Jason that she had been open and told them that she is suicidal. That all it may have taken in that moment was a stranger putting out a hand to maybe prevent something bad from happening. Before I move on to the story and wrapping up, I hope and pray to God that that little girl got the help that she needed and deserved that day, that next week, that next month, and the last 6, 7 years. I hope she's a healthy 17-year-old up in Allentown High School. And I truly believe that she is. I think sometimes the hardest step is that first step. And Jason may have been part of that girl getting that first step. This story got out on campus. An article came out. The NCAA picked it up a few months later called "Move to Action. A runner's tale of battling depression helped a teammate step in to help a stranger." When I had heard what happened, like the day after it happened, I remember I smiled for the first time in like 6 months, a genuine smile. I drove up to school, and I found Jason and gave him a huge hug. I was like, "Dude, you are the man. I don't know what you said or what you did, but thank you, because this has really meant a lot to me already, and my family, but clearly people are talking about it too." We got emotional, we connected on a higher level. Jason shared some of his struggles he's been through before. Maybe he's needed a hand when he was in one of those battles and wanted to do that for someone else, kind of like a pay it forward. And I just think it really shows what a little act of kindness in a hand can do for someone. Long story short, my recovery started to really take off. I got outside. April and May came. I think a lot of us do better in the warm months. We're entering the cold months now, the winter. It's hard for a lot of people. I think especially this year because of everything going on. I joined a boxing gym, which was so therapeutic for me. A lot of that anger that I had built up because of everything going on, I took out on heavy bags. I punched, and I'm an active person, so I need that. What might work for you, mindfulness or yoga, might not work for me. Even though yoga is active, I feel like I need to be a little bit more like running around and really energetic. But find those outlets because I found them. As you can see, biking is one of mine for sure. I walked to graduation that May. I finished all the schoolwork that I had missed with Muhlenberg and with community college, Delaware County Community College. I needed to really take a step back to get healthy first before I could go back and do college work and be a student and get ready for a career. And that was really important. That was a self-care thing. We need to be healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally to be who we want to be, love who we want to love, and be there for others. So please know that self-care is not selfish. Take care of yourself. Use your outlets, use your tools, and find your people because they're out there. The last 6 years have been a lot of ups and downs. Started a few jobs. I didn't really like them. I did finance, accounting. I started to continue to recover and get to a long-term healthy place, which I've been in for about 5 or 6 years now. And the reason that I'm so passionate about this, the reason that I'm so lucky to be part of Minding Your Mind and share this story in schools and companies, is because we want you all to know that it gets better. You can beat this. You are not alone. You will recover. that bottom line is so important. Please seek help if you need it. It is not a weakness to need help. There are people who will listen. I know that barrier for me was really hard to break through. And it wasn't necessarily the first person I went to that I found help for. So please know, keep trying because you deserve it. And so does your family and friends and people in your life. I know I shared this in the beginning and you all shared a lot of great things, but build your toolbox up, whatever they are for you. Sleeping, napping, music, playing an instrument, exercise, maybe it's cooking, connecting with friends, whatever it is. Find those outlets and build up your people too, your trusted adults. And then finally, I know these resources are being shared a lot in the last couple of days with through the J, through this program. But the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-TALK. And then you can also text connect or help at any time to 741-741 and reach a counselor who will listen and support. So so with that, I want to wrap up and thank you all for listening. I know it went a little bit longer than maybe I hoped, but we have about 7 minutes or so for any questions or thoughts. I'm gonna stop sharing right now, and I just want you all to know that I'm at a really helpful or really hopeful point right now in my life, that I manage my depression the best that I can, and you're not alone. I don't think you're ever cured from these things, but you just learn how to manage and find peace. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you took something from this. So are there any thoughts, questions, or concerns for myself while I'm still here?
Thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing that incredible personal journey. We do have a couple questions coming up. Someone asked if you could reshare your last slide.
Yeah, sure. The resources slide?
Yes,
I'll bring it
please.
up.
And just so everyone knows, we will be posting all of these resources on our landing page on the website that has been posted in the chat. Someone had asked, I suffer from depression and I'm always afraid of a relapse. Do you ever get afraid it might come back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do. I think I've really been in such a peaceful place for the last 5 years that I almost sometimes forget what it feels like to be in that spot. The good thing, the hopeful thing is that if it were to come back, if I were to have another trigger or bout, or maybe out of nowhere, I now know what to do. I now know where to go. Like, I've been through it before, and so is my family. So we would probably try maybe the same things. Maybe I have to open up to my psychiatrist and be like, hey, something's not going right here, or add a few counseling sessions, and then really lean on my coping skills a lot too. So I feel like I have a good plan set up if that were to happen, and I hope that it stayed like that. But that's a really good question. I think you never really know what's going to happen in the future. So I really kind of just take it one day at a time, and I think that's been a really helpful thing for me. And a lot of people in their lives, is one day at a time. Try to live in the moment. If you need some help in the future, then you'll do that. You'll go in those ways.
All right, thank you. And what if it's really difficult to talk about mental health with my support group or family? Maybe I've tried and it hasn't gone how I hoped. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so I first want to say that I admire your strength, because it's really hard to experience these things and have closed doors. Maybe, like you said, you've tried talking about it, there's stigma, or there's a get over it, there's not an understanding of what you're going through. You may have already tried this, but keep going to your people, your trusted people in your life. That might be a friend, it might be an aunt or an uncle, it might be a teacher or counselor, it might be someone at your gym, a resource. It could be a coach, whoever it is in your life that you have a good relationship with or you trust, and just say, hey, can we talk? Like, I have some things I'm going through right now. Because I guarantee it may not be the first 3, it might not be the 4th, 5th. You'll find that one person that will open up and be like, yeah, of course I'm here, tell me more. What I found also helpful for me, especially when I started getting help, is I wrote things down. I would write things down on an index card because it was hard for me to talk about it. And I think it made it also more real for me, and also the person who might see that index card. So I found that helpful for a lot of people starting that first step too. So don't stop. If you feel like something's wrong, something's going on, you know yourself more than anyone. So try your best to get the support that you need.
And we have time for one more, and this is a really important question. What should you do if you know someone close to you is struggling and they need help?
Yeah. I think bringing it up is always better safe than sorry. Saying little things like, if you first notice it, are you okay? And making it a little shorter too, talking about today, like, are you okay today? Because life is, there's a lot of things going on. When you ask someone, are you okay? They might say, I'm fine in that moment. But if you ask them, are you okay today? They might open up about something that's going on. If you really know someone needs help, if you're really concerned for them, that's when you might need to take a step for them to that next step of help. Those professionals in your community or in your school, whatever it is, telling a trusted adult, I have someone in my life I'm really concerned about, is a really safe way to talk about it. And you don't need to name names right away. Just bringing that up and bringing it out in the open is important. And then keeping that door open too for that friend or family member, saying, we don't need to talk about this today. Like, we don't need to talk about this week, but I'm here. Like, if you need to chat with someone, or if you're going through something, like, I'm here and I will listen to you, is a great way to keep that door open. And they might use it in 2 weeks, or, so I think those are some good things that I felt that has worked.
Those are great reminders. Well, a lot of the attendees have thanked you for sharing your experience in such a compassionate and articulate way. So we cannot thank you enough, Andrew, for joining us today. And thank you, attendees, for being with us at this year's Wellness Summit. We are out of time now, but we will be back. Please join us for upcoming wellness sessions, and feel free to contact us with feedback and get further information and answers to questions that we couldn't get to today on our landing page, siegeljcc.org/wellness. Up next, we have yoga with Melissa Stanley from the Siegel JCC at 10:30. And at 2 p.m., we have coronaphobia, virus anxieties, and getting help with Dr. David Cheslow and Paul Cheslow, nurse practitioner. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Stay well, and please remember, you are not alone. We are in this together.
Thanks all. Have a good day.